Hi there, and welcome along to another preview edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, a totally free and independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where all of our content is always free. And if you head over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you can get involved in all of the excellent content that we have besides the podcast here, which includes the very friendly discussion forum, the articles, the social media, and of course the history archive. If you're joining us live tonight, it's just gone 9 o'clock on Friday, the 27th of August. I'm sorry that you haven't got anything better to do with your Friday night, but neither do me and Colin, so you can hang out with us. The podcast is always available for download the next day, so that'll be out tomorrow morning, and that's wherever you get your podcasts from, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and Spotify. As I say, the other sort of sad guy giving up his Friday night to talk about Rangers is my good friend and colleague, Colin Armstrong. Colin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, Ross. Thanks for asking. Good friend and colleague. That's as good as it gets, really, isn't it?
Good colleague and friend.
Okay. Right, fair enough. I'll take what I'm given. I'm not greedy.
No. How's your week been? Has the battle fever been well and truly on?
Quite a hard week at work, to be honest with you. Quite a pressured week at work. So I was really looking forward to that game last night, and it was awful. It was 90 minutes of absolute. Oh, it was just brutal. It was just one of the games, as we were saying before we came on air, that had to be endured rather than enjoyed.
Yeah.
But it was horrible. So I was a wee bit of disappointment because I was really looking forward to seeing Rangers perform well, and especially when they went down to 10, you thought, like, we're going to get a couple now. We should have. I mean, it wasn't like we didn't have a good amount of chances on the night, but some of the finishing was poor, and just overall it was just really, really poor to watch. So I'm hoping for better on Sunday, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, just before we came on air there, Frankie said to us, it's an Old Firm preview. You can have an extra sort of 5 or 10 minutes. So do you want to use that time to get into your work problems, or do you want to stick?
No, I don't want to talk about work.
We'll stick to football then, because that's brutal.
I wouldn't say they're problems. It's just there's been a lot to do this week, and it was all tight deadlines, and I got it done. I got it done in the end, but it was half going.
Excellent. Well, we might as well dive right in. Obviously, we're here to talk about the Old Firm, which is coming up on Sunday, first Old Firm of the season. Midday kickoff welcoming Celtic to Ibrox. But of course, we played Alashkert last night, and that's put us through to the group stages of the Europa League for the 4th year in a row. So we might as well have a wee look back at that. Colin, as you say, it was kind of let's describe it as another sort of huffing and puffing performance from Rangers. Never really looked like the side that we looked like at times last season. But we've made it through. That was kind of the theme of Gary Mack's post-match interview, was we made it through 4 years in a row, very, very successful. Given that we didn't score against an absolutely weaker opposition that was down to 10 men, can we call last night a successful result, or are you really looking for more at this stage?
I mean, at the end of the day, the job was done. So, yeah, under the terms of the use successful, I consider successful. Did you achieve your aim? Then that's a success. However, the performance can be a lot better. And I think it's further evidence that things just haven't clicked this season at all. Now, I was watching Gary McAllister's press conference today, and he was sort of attributing that to a few things, players coming back from the Euros, Copa America, the COVID issues, people coming back from red flag countries, all that kind of thing. So yeah, there have been issues, but you'd have to say every club's had those issues. You know what I mean? It's not just us. So it's still, I get what he's saying, and I agree with him. There hasn't been the same sort of fluent feel to things as what there was last pre-season and going into the early stages of the season. So I understand what they're saying, and what McAllister was saying, sorry. And to a certain degree, I agree with him. I think there are issues in terms of, with players coming back at different times. But as I said, that's affected most big clubs. And, Celtic were in turmoil, the first few games of the season. I'm not saying they're, the rebirth of the Brazil 1970 team that they seem to think that they are. But, they've turned it around fairly quickly, especially going forward. I think defensively they're still in shambles, and I don't think we should forget that. But there's definitely been an improvement in their performances overall, whereas we're still very disjointed looking. And last night was a classic example of it. all night it was the same, very sort of disjointed. I kind of got the feeling, Frankie mentioned it before we came on air, that, we were playing within ourselves a wee bit. I did kind of get that impression at times that we weren't full pelt, but even still, especially when they go down to 10 men, the level of opposition you're playing, you should expect to beat a team like that, I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a lack of, I don't know, is it fluency or fluidity? Things just aren't. It's not quite gelling, and it's one of those things. I think at the start of the season we were using those excuses, like we've come back from the Euros, come back from Copa America. The pre-season hasn't been ideal. We played a lot of competitive games now,
Yeah.
So it really does need to be starting to click. That being said, Colin, obviously this week for us has really been dominated by COVID in a way that it has affected us already this season, probably more than it did last season. I think the COVID absences we had last season were obviously the 5 players that had the party and then were banned, same with George Evans and Jordan Jones, but we never really had the virus itself either spreading through the players or forcing mass isolations. That's obviously happened this week. And I think the first we all sort of knew about it was when reports were coming from the airport that, hang on, Gerrard's not here, Tavernier's not here, 5 or 6 other first team players weren't there. Naturally, that's going to have some kind of an impact, even if nothing else, your manager's not able to give you the instructions. How big an impact do you think that had on the game?
I mean, obviously, it's not ideal preparation. There's no denying that. You want your manager to be there, you want your best players to be there. And it also puts an element of uncertainty over, Sunday's game, and that's maybe in people's minds. I mean, for Ross McCrory, his brother, what's his name? Robbie. Huge night for him to come in, so these all unexpectedly, boom, that's it, you're in. And it was, I know Sunday's game's important, but last night's was arguably more important, because we haven't qualified for the Champions League. We've lost out on the sort of the revenue that was available there. So to me, it was essential that we qualified for the Europa League, because if we drop down further into that, the Conference League thing, then I think we'd have been looking at selling 1 or 2 more players than we'd wanted to. So I think it was essential that we got through last night. And maybe that's partly why we weren't fluent last night. Maybe players realised that the pressure was on it. But the COVID stuff definitely doesn't help. There's no doubt about that. That said, the way things are at the moment, people are getting back to work. People are, there's a wee sense of normality. People are back in the grounds again. Hospitality venues are open again, pubs and restaurants. I think there was always going to be an increase in cases. I would actually say I know more people with it now than I've had at any point through this whole thing. It's running riot at my son's school. One of his teammates in his football team have got it. One of my mates, a guy I go to the Camelin games with, Paul, he's tested positive. These are things that I hadn't really come across in the previous 18 months. So I think that's to be expected. We're mixing again, we're going out again, and mass gatherings again. So I think every club will get it this year. Last year, I think clubs had a chance because players were in their bubble. Everyone was, we're in a lockdown. Everybody was sort of staying in their house and stuff like that. So that gave players a good chance of not contracting it or, being a close contact to someone who has it. We're all out and about again. So, even if a player says, I'm just going to stay in the house and I'm going to, his family will be going out, wives, children, all that. Myself, my kids are at the school. The school's riddled with it. My wife works in a hospital. That's obviously riddled with it. So even if I decided to be a hermit and stay in the house 24/7 for the next however long, there's a good chance that virus is coming into my house, but the same for players. So, yeah, I think it'll affect a lot of players and clubs this season. So it's maybe as well getting out of the road quicker, and deal with it then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another hard thing with this is that the football players naturally part of the younger cohort, I suppose. And it's not given that they'll have all been double vaccinated by now. I think things are pretty tight, making sure that you can't just pay to get your vaccine done quicker because you've got the money. So that's probably not helping the situation. But yeah, it's a really, really difficult one. The virus, obviously, it hasn't gone anywhere. And as you say, as the world opens up again, I'm coming up for the Old Firm. Obviously, I'm flying up to Edinburgh tomorrow, getting the bus across to Glasgow, go through two airports, a bus station, sitting on the bus next to folk, going to the stadium where there'll be, I don't know, it's close to full capacity, isn't it? Say 45,000 folk. The virus is going to spread. Yeah. We're all jabbed and we're all this and we're all that, and that will soften the blow or lessen the impact for most people, obviously. But yeah, for us all to sort of think, well, stadiums are open again, so things are back to normal. You can see that this virus is still going to have a hell of an impact throughout the season, and you're right, getting it out of the way early is not such a bad thing. I guess, Colin, with say the virus and the absences that we had, with the 5.5 hour flight that the players had to go through, with the manager not being there, with the heat, some sources saying it was up to 36 degrees at the time of kickoff yesterday. Can we cut some slack in terms of the performance? The players had to get through last night. Alashkert, whether at Ibrox or in Armenia, they never really looked like scoring. The most significant impact of Robbie McCrory's night was when he was kicked in the head. So he's had a very quiet night. The players had to get through that and get through to the next round, which they did without conceding, without really looking like conceding. Can we cut them a bit of slack, do you think?
A little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes back to what I said earlier. I think, we qualified, and that was the objective. And I think it was essential that we qualified. So it's that tie has been a success. We got through, they didn't. Job done. But I just think it's the level of the performance. It's over both legs that was slightly disappointing. I think the second half last week was probably the best he played over the two legs. When we were down to 10, when Scott Wright came on, that injected a bit of urgency into us, and that's probably the best we've looked over the two legs, I think. First half performance last week was really poor, and I would say, first and second half yesterday could have been a lot better. But at the end of the day, we're through, and you can cut them a bit of slack because this team, they were relentless last season. This is the fourth year in a row. We've reached the group stages of the Europa League. And I think it was quite interesting to hear Gary McAllister today describe us as an established Europa League team. And I think he's right. We've had some really good results over the last 3 years. And so we are. We've got experience in that tournament now. We know how to go to places and win games and get points and all the rest of it. And, we've got out the group stages the last 2 seasons. So you have to give this team credit, and you have to give the manager and the coaching staff credit, because, before Steven Gerrard arrived, the thought of getting to the group stages of the Europa one season, let alone 4, was just not on. So yeah, it is a success. It was just, I don't think there'd have been too much criticism about the performance last night if it wasn't the latest in a line of similar performances. I think, if we'd played well in previous games, and we'd won the home leg maybe 2-3-0, and we played like that last night, I don't think anyone would really bother. They just viewed it as, right, well, it was a game to be endured, as I said, and not enjoyed. But the fact that the tie wasn't completely put to bed, and we were looking just one goal. I was with my mate last night. We went to the pub to watch it. I was like, one goal. That's all we need. One goal, and in the game, the tie is done. There's no way they're coming back after that. And they couldn't get that. It was a wee bit disappointing, I think. But as I said, there's all sorts of issues going on at the moment. But they need to find a rhythm soon. There's a big game on Sunday. And I think after the international break, I think it's St Johnstone away, which could be a tricky. I mean, I know they're struggling a wee bit at the moment domestically, but Callum Davison seems to know how to play against Rangers, so that could be another tricky game. They need to find form soon. They need to find their rhythm very, very soon. Yeah,
you're absolutely right, and I'm sure you'll talk about it more on the main show on Sunday. But the draw was made for the group stages today. Lyon, Sparta Prague, and Brøndby from Copenhagen. What's your immediate reaction to that?
I mean, in terms of the draw itself, I think it's one we can get out of. I mean, I think you would assume that Lyon are favourites to win the group, as Benfica were last year, and then it's between us and probably Sparta Prague for the second spot. But I'm slightly disappointed because I've seen 2 of those teams already. I've seen Sparta Prague in '91. We were 2-0 up. Stuart McCall scored twice. We lost the first leg 1-0. It was actually my first European game, actually, Sparta Prague. And we were 2-0 up. Stuart McCall scored 2 goals. And then about 5 minutes to go, Scott Nisbet and Andy Gorham, it was just the most bizarre thing. Scott Nisbet sort of toe poked it. There was no power in it. And Andy Gorham, I don't know what he was thinking about. He just sort of watched it as it sort of trickled in, and that was us out in the away goals. And obviously the Lyon game, they pumped us at Ibrox. I was there that night when we got beat 3-0. So a wee bit disappointed because last season, who did we get? Benfica, Standard Liège, and who's the other team? Anderlecht, was it?
No.
In the group stages. Does that know where Roof scored his goal?
That was Liège.
Was that Liège?
This is shocking, isn't it? Like the three.
Well, I'm nearly 50. It's all right for me. It's shocking for you. But I mean, the three teams that they got last season, I hadn't seen those teams.
Poznan.
I hadn't seen those teams.
Right.
I hadn't seen any of those teams. I was like, I'd really like to see them. And then when we're back in, it's two teams that I've, 2 of the 3 I've seen already. Quite tough for my boy because, it's 3 new teams for him that he's never seen before. But I was a wee bit frustrated. I always try and look for teams that I've not seen yet, if you know what I mean. And I've failed on this thing.
Yeah, you've failed.
I've failed the big thing.
I'm quite pleased with it. I think I've not seen any of those. I was at the Lyon home game as well. We got the overnight sleeper train back down to London after it. It was horrible. But as far as Prague and Brøndby, I'd be really, really disappointed if we weren't getting out of that group. And actually, the last that we saw of Lyon obviously was our demolition of them in the Veolia Trophy last year. I'm sure they're out for revenge for that. But I'd be surprised if they don't top the group. But I think we can be challenging for that and comfortably go through. Absolutely. Right, before we move on to talk about the Old Firm coming up this Sunday, just a quick word for one of our partners here at Gersnet, which is footballprizes.co.uk, who obviously run prize draws for excellent custom football merchandise. At the moment, they've got a prize draw on the go for an Alan Boyce signed and custom framed Rangers shirt. There's 99 tickets available for sale at £4.95 each. The competition will end on the 1st of September at 7:30 p.m. So do head over to the website at footballprizes.co.uk to grab a ticket or have a look on the Gersnet social media feeds where you can get the direct link. Colin, it's the first Old Firm game of the season. It's always a nervy one. It's always an exciting one. We've spoken a lot today about the COVID players who are missing. Some really, really key players. I think in particular Alan McGregor, Ryan Kent, who seems to terrify them. Scott Wright possibly being our best player so far this season. Calvin Bassey, who I think has been excellent so far this season and kind of stood in really well for Borna Barisic, and of course our captain was missing on Thursday as well. How important for this tie is it that we get as many of those players back fit and ready to go as possible? You'll have to unmute it before you start talking.
Thank you for pointing that out, Ross. I think it's vital that McGregor's there, I must admit, because he's a big player in these games. Tav at the moment, Tav's one of those ones that's not in his best form, and I trust Patterson in that role, so that would be fine. On the other side, I'd like to see Bassey, because Barisic, I don't know what's wrong with Barisic at the moment, but he just doesn't look the player that we all know he is. Now, I'm not saying that Bassey's now our first choice left back, but until Borna finds some form again and get some confidence back, then I would rather see Bassey in there. Ken, again, not playing that great at the moment, but it's maybe this type of game he needs. Big crowd, as you say, he enjoys playing against Celtic more times than not. He gives them problems. Even although he's not been playing well, you would want him in. I would like to see Scott Wright in one of these games. I really would. I feel for Scott Wright this season because he's played so well, and every time he comes off the bench and does well, you think, well, he's earned a start. He's due a start, and he just never seems to get it. I feel for him because you look at other players in the team that aren't performing so well. They're getting a start all the time. Your Taverniers, Lundstrom's, that kind of thing. So yeah, I do feel for him. I'd love to see him in a game like this because he's so direct. He's got a bit of pace and he's intelligent. He's more intelligent than I think people give him credit for. He's an intelligent player. And he's far better than I thought. When we signed him, I was kind of like, I don't really know an awful lot about this guy. Well, I know now. He's really made an impact since he's arrived, and I feel for him a wee bit. I think he's deserving of a wee bit more game time than he's getting at the moment. So I would love to see him in on Sunday, but I don't think we'll find out who's playing until the team's announced. I think Rangers, I kind of got the feeling watching that press conference today, they were keeping their cards very close to their chest. It's just like, we are not cracking a light here about who's in and who's not in. I suspect the club have an idea. I think Steven Gerrard will know who's available, or have a strong indication of who's available. But I mean, what's his name? I'm having a brain freeze again here, Ross. McAllister today was just, he was asked a couple of times and he was just not going there. We don't know. It's up to the governing bodies. It's up to the medical staff. Blah blah blah. I think the way he was answering those questions suggests they know more than what he was letting on. Yeah, it's a fascinating one, and like I say, they kind of kept it very close to their chest and very secret until we'll work it out, because we could count how many folk were getting on the plane, But I think it'll be something very, very similar. No one will know until 90 minutes before kickoff. That's it. Now, Colin, do the following names fill you with dread and/or fear? We've got Anthony Ralston, Carl Starfelt, Stephen Welsh, Adam Montgomery. Chances are that is the back four that Celtic will line up with, possibly Taylor instead of Montgomery, but he did kind of limp off last night against AZ Alkmaar. That is a weak defence, and if we can have players like Ryan Kent, like Scott Wright, like Yanis Hadji, like Joe Aribo running at that back four, surely there is weakness there to be exploited, even if we've not been firing on all cylinders this season. No, I think I heard someone talking about that previously, that kind of both teams. I mean, certainly last week against Ross County, there were signs that Rangers were looking a wee bit more like themselves, and I think that's what made last night's performance so disappointing. We thought we'd kind of taken a wee step forward, and last night felt like 3 steps back. But I think Rangers going forward, if they click, that's a defence to go at, really. I mean, you saw the goal that Starfelt scored last night. It was comical, and Joe Hart as well. I don't think he covered himself in glory with the first goal. So yeah, definitely get got at. But the worry is our own defence, because we were a team this time last season that I don't think we conceded by this point last season, had we? I think it was the Hibs game, which was around about October, before we conceded our first goal. So, and we've conceded 3, 4 this season already. So that's the worry. The defence just doesn't look as solid as it was last season, and I think Celtic have obviously improved in that area. So that's the worry. And I know it's going to be all Rangers supporters on Sunday. That kind of gives me the fear a wee bit as well. It could be a bonus thing. If we get the early goal and the crowd get going and the players react to that, it could go in our favour. But I think if we don't get the early goal, and if they talk about, all coaches talk about this in away games. After 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if we silence the crowd and then they start to turn. If Celtic manage that, then it could be a tetchy afternoon. I think we could be quite nervous. So I think the fact that no away support there could be a blessing and could be a curse. I know the last time it was all Rangers supporters, when David Murray banned them in sort of the mid-90s when they let them in because they kept on smashing the seats. It was a draw that day. I think we drew 1 each with them that day, and I wasn't at the game that day. But my mate who came back, he was like, he thought it was going to be great, this crescendo of Rangers supporters and that. He came back saying, what, we named it to hate, it just wasn't the same. With no section of the ground but you could shout it and all that kind of thing. He says it just wasn't the same. So he didn't enjoy it. So don't get me wrong, I'm chuckling away that the 800 aren't getting in, but it could work against us, I think. And I think that's something Rangers supporters who'll be there on Sunday need to be wary of, to try and be supportive. Even after like 15, 20, 25 minutes, if we've not got the goal, turning on them is not going to help. Turning on them gives the opposition the sort of, all right, we're in here, it would give them the belief. I was talking to my mate about this last night, actually, and we're talking about how weird it's going to be when the teams come out, because I've not really been paying attention how they've been coming out at Ibrox. I noticed other grounds are coming out at different parts of the ground. One at a time. So I'm assuming they'll come out the main tunnel, but it was one at a time. And I was like, I said, what we should do? We shouldn't boo them. We should just say nothing. They should just come out to a completely empty stadium. You know what I mean? And I think that would be more unnerving than, because you expect the boos. You know what I mean? They'll expect the jeering, and I think sometimes that spurs you on. But if you come out to total silence, the hell's this? So I don't know. Obviously that will not happen, because it's not possible. But I think that would be better than doing them. I just think that would completely unnerve them, if they just walked out to an empty stadium, and then when the Rangers came out, we give them a big cheer.
Yeah, well, it is going to be a slightly surreal thing, as you say. I've never been to a game where there was no away fans, so it is going to be, certainly a very weird.
You must have been at a St Johnstone game at Ibrox, sure.
No, I've done a St Mirren game at Ibrox.
You can count the St Mirren fans. There's normally about 33 of them.
Yeah, 33 of them, and St Mirren's 9 miles down the road from Ibrox.
Yeah.
That always annoyed me. If I'm flying up from London, I'm spending all that money travelling all that way, and those guys can't get a bus, right, to support it.
Well, they can get a bus, but it normally takes them to Parkhead. I find St Mirren fans, that's where they tend to go on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you make a good point though about supporting the players on Sunday, because it's even the little things like I'm right in saying subs still can't sit on the bench, can they? They sort of have to be back. In the stands, so they've not even got that kind of buffer around them of the dugout. And if things do start to turn, or 25 minutes gone and a misplaced pass and it's nothing each, that could start to affect some of the players waiting to come on. I'm not sure I want one here because there's a bit of a nasty atmosphere in the air, but I don't know. I think our fans this season have been a credit to us. I think that they have shown patience. I think from even things like the taking of the knee, the way that we've responded to the players there, I think it's been really, really admirable. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to it. I'm a bit slightly worried about our defence, and Celtic do look like they have goals in them. They're scoring goals at the moment, so that's maybe a wee bit of a concern. But certainly very, very much looking forward to it. I guess the question, Colin, is how important, taking the emotion out of the game, how important is this one result in the context of the entire season?
I mean, nothing's going to be won or lost on Sunday, in terms of the league title. But I mean, if we were to lose it, given Celtic's goal difference at the moment as well, because of the 2-6-0 wins, they've fairly racked up the goals. Then you would have to say that it's maybe a 4-point gap, because even if we close the gap, they've still got the goal difference. So I think it's vital to get a win. I think it's vital to get a win just to hopefully that would reboot us and get us back on track. You know what I mean? Because it just seems to me like a lot of them are just lacking in a bit of belief, a bit of confidence. Whatever it is, wins breed confidence, especially against your biggest rivals. If you go out there and turn it on against your biggest rivals, especially when everybody's starting to, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, everyone was saying, this Old Firm game's a formality. Rangers are going to absolutely annihilate Celtic because they were such a shambles at the time. That narrative has shifted, and a lot of people in the media are now going the other way, saying, Celtic are going to turn up and turn them over. So it kind of feels like we're going into as underdogs. And I'm sure I read something on Twitter the other day saying that the bookies have Celtic as favourites to win on Sunday. So, it's the best possible time to put out a statement and just say, right, back in your box. It's up to the players. It's up to the players to find that rhythm, to find that sort of level of performance that they found last season. And to end all this, we can't play in front of crowds nonsense. That pisses me off. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a nonsense. Don't get me wrong. I do wonder sometimes in terms of how they cope with pressure. And the reason we never had it last year was just because we were so good. You know what I mean? They never really faced any questions. They just dealt with everything that came their way. So I would like to see them stand up and give a performance and just put all that talk to bed and then move on. Hopefully this will be the game that they put in a good result, a great performance, great result. And that gives them the sort of the boost that they need, because it looks like they need something. You know what I mean? As I said last Sunday, there was wee hints that they were starting to click, and then those stupid defensive mistakes made the game, with 15 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, it was still like, Frost County score again here. We're going to drop points.
Yeah.
So Sunday would be a great time to sort of to finish all that.
Yeah, and you're right that nothing gets decided at this stage of the season. And it's, I think it was John made the point on the main show on Sunday just gone. He said it's starting to look a bit more like a kind of normal season where points do get dropped. We don't win everything. We do lose games. We do draw games. And And so that's why we don't need to take too much panic away from the fact that we dropped points away at Dundee United the other week. Celtic have also dropped points. Celtic were mightily unimpressive in their opening game against Hearts. Celtic were mightily unimpressive in the way that they were dumped out of the Champions League again. And so I don't think we necessarily need to go into this one with any fear. Yeah, the narrative has slightly shifted. And people are labelling them, bookies are labelling them as favourites. Because they do seem to have, let's say they have a bit more form at the moment. That said, they still lost yesterday to an AZ Alkmaar team who are not special. Nothing really for us to fear. They still have an incredibly weak, naive, inexperienced back four and a goalkeeper who is, living off the glories they had 10 years ago. There is nothing really for us to fear there. And like I say, with no opposition supporters at Ibrox, this is a day for us to dictate. We are going there as champions, and I think we have to set that tone from the off that this is our house, this is our city, this is our league, and we are the team still to fear. COVID cases and some patchy performances at the start of the season doesn't change everything that we accomplished last season. Doesn't change the fact that our players are still the players that went unbeaten and had record after record after record last year. The mentality of that seems to have shifted, but momentum is so important in football. And I think you're right that if we get the win, go into the international break, refresh, recharge, get fitness levels back up to where they need to be, then I think this can be a real sort of starting point to kick on for the rest of the season. I guess the only other question to make, Colin, is, are you confident? Do you see this going our way on Sunday?
I'm always confident at Ibrox, Ross. Always. I mean, intergalactic Real Madrid could come down from some other planet, and if it was at Ibrox, if this team's the best team in the galaxy, I would fancy us at Ibrox. It's always been the case. So yeah, confident. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're looking at Celtic thinking it's probably going to be tighter now. But if Rangers, if they turn up, if they put in the performance that we know they're capable of putting in, if everyone reaches the levels that are required in these games, if we match them in terms of desire and effort and work rate and all that, then I think we've got the better players. Yeah, I really do. I know we're struggling, but I think we've got the better players at the moment. And as I said, hopefully this will be the game that they get the result, and that the belief will just, because a result like that, as I said, especially the way things have been going and some of the criticism that the players have been getting, and some of the sort of sniping and sneering that's been sort of aimed at Rangers of late because of their performances, kills that, puts that all to bed. As you say, you go into the international break, that gives players a chance to, the ones that are obviously not, the ones that are travelling to, play for international teams aside, it gives them a chance to have a wee break, then, as you say, get back in training and get back up. I mean, Stephen Gerrard, I think it was last week after the Ross County game, he'd sort of suggested he'd seen a shift in training. He'd seen a wee bit more edge and starting to see signs of the team from last season, coming to the fore. And hopefully that's the case. And we need them on Sunday. We need them on Sunday. We've dominated this fixture for the last year and a bit. They've not beat us since, Christ, when was the last time they beat us? It's that long ago, I can't even mind.
Yeah, a couple of seasons, certainly not last season.
It would be the 2-0 game at Ibrox. It's September 2019.
When was the cup final that they won 1-0?
Yeah, but that was the cup. That doesn't count. We're talking about league games. Last time they beat us in the league was 2 years ago. Yeah. So we've dominated this fixture for the last 2 years, and we need to go out and put that message out on Sunday. As I said, I think if our players turn up, if we reach the performance levels that we know they're capable of, then I think we'll win.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. As we say then, the game, first Old Firm of the season, Ibrox, 12 o'clock on Sunday. And as it's all Rangers fans and all Celtic fans, it's going to be one to remember, I am sure. That sort of takes us to the end of today's show. So thank you very, very much if you've joined us live or they downloaded the show after the event. We're very, very grateful for that. The show will be back on Sunday at 9:30 p.m, whether we win, lose or draw. That'll be Colin taking you through as host with Dougie and Chris Jack as well, who will be joining us to guest. So please do make sure you tune into that. That's 9:30 on the Gersnet YouTube stream, or as always available to download from Monday morning wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, please do head over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and bye for now.